it's Kristie here from Bushveld Bees. I'm coming to you today from a very cold and wet KZN. KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa has been hit very hard with floods and extreme amounts of rain over the last few days. And so I thought I would reach out to anyone who might be interested in some little tips and hints on how to help your hives in this very wet time. What we've started doing today, after we've had around 300 mils of rain in the last 5 days, we've actually started supplement feeding all of our hives. So we've put pollen patties inside all the colonies, as well as sugar water supplements, to which we've added amino acids as well as probiotics, just to give the bees a nice boost. That sugar water is a 1-to-1 mix, and then we've added the probiotics and the amino acids to them. These will help your bees to strengthen and keep them nice and healthy as we move into yet another spell of rain and cold coming in the weeks to come. So I would recommend the same. I've had hundreds of messages from beekeepers, especially along the south coast, who have had their hives fall over in these extreme weather conditions. Also, mudslides have caused hives to wash away. The only thing that I can recommend, guys, is as quickly as possible, get your hive back together. Let the bees reset. If your super has fallen off, take it off if it doesn't have anything of substance for the bees. But if it has that nectar and honey in it, place it on your hives and give your bees a nice boost. So these kinds of events are very difficult to plan for. We know that. But when you're placing your hives, it's very important that you think of if the soil that you've placed your stand in, if it's very loose, easy to push the stand in. When there's a lot of rain, that sort of stand will start to sink, which will put your hives at risk. Also, when you're stacking many supers on top of your hives, they become top heavy. You need to be aware of these things as you're moving into times of heavy rain. Keep a close eye on your hives as far as possible to try and prevent, disasters of hives just toppling over. Obviously, with lots of rain, you have a lot of wash off, and that's why we always make sure our hives are lifted off the ground. Putting them on a tire is sufficient, but as soon as you see that there's lots of rain, it's important that you make sure that hive is raised high off the ground. Otherwise, lots of debris will wash into the hive, and when the sun eventually does come out, your bees are trapped because there's no more space for them to get in and out of the hive. So it can also prevent ventilation and all kinds of other things, which makes it very hard for the bees to sustain that environment. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Another helpful hint is just to remember, as soon as there's been a number of days with rain, where there's been no sunshine, your bees cannot forage in that time. So they're going to be using up all their resources inside their hive. Guys, you need to remember, you can't be pulling honey now. So I've had people phoning me saying, "Oh, Kristie, must I pull my super? It's getting cold. What if this honey crystallizes?" Who cares if your honey crystallizes? You're going to kill your bees. They need that food supply in this time. So wait until there's a nice number of clear days where the bees can forage and then make decisions like that. But this is not the time to be harvesting honey, guys. We need to be looking after our bees. Their health should be our first priority. Okay. Right, if you're lucky, like we were this morning, the sun came out and suddenly there was enormous activity around our hives. Guys, don't panic. They're not swarming off. These bees have been trapped inside for a number of days with the rain. And so first of all, they really need to use the loo. So they need to go and do their poop flight. They need to do their business. So don't panic. They're not swarming off. But also, Gunther shared a lovely video with us of his bees. And within just a few hours of the sun coming up, they are literally coming into the hive packed with pollen, packed with nectar. Please, guys, try and give your bees a supplement. Even if you put a pollen substitute outside of the hive, a dry pollen, make sure that it's of a good quality so that whatever that small period of foraging time, that the bees are able to bring in the best possible nutritious food supply to their colony. There'll also be, during wet periods, the bees will start to remove any larvae that is not hatched or that is starving because there's not enough food. And often drones will all be they'll all be thrown out of the hive. Don't panic. This is them trying to save the colony as a whole. So we need to talk about something important, beekeepers. with so much rain, we are not going to have the honey crop that we have all dreamed of this season. What happens is when there's excessive rain, the water washes the nectar out of the flowers. It washes the pollen off the flowers, which is not going to attract the bees there. And sadly, this will affect our honey crop. Also, although the plants need that moisture in the soil to be able to produce nectar, if there's too much of it, those flowers are going to be saturated. And many, especially the small, delicate flowers like you've got on many of the blue gums, actually get washed off the tree completely. So unless we have a number of continuous days of sunshine heading up to our autumn setting in, I'm sad to say we are probably not going to have a honey crop this season. And if we do, it will be a very minimal one. Also, if you think of, we've got many hives that have lots of nectar in those supers, which is fantastic and promising. But have you ever tried to dry washing when it's been raining for 4 days? It doesn't dry. And that's the same thing with the nectar. They need to dehydrate it. And in order to dehydrate it, they need warm, hot conditions where they can fan that honey and dehydrate it quickly. If it doesn't get dehydrated fast enough, it can ferment, and then the bees will use it for their own resources instead of storing it. Okay, so just keep that in mind and don't get despondent. At the end of the day, this is nature, and it's wonderful for us as beekeepers to be able to observe the effects of nature in our hives day to day and year by year. So keep being positive about bees, and let's hope that with all of this, we'll at least have a decent spring harvest. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.